I'd like to move that we approve the minutes of the May 18th meeting.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes from 5:18 are approved. How about June 5th?
I'll move to approve those minutes as well.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion of the June 5th meeting minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Those are both approved as well. Next item up for discussion is the graphics and logos that the gentleman from Grace College helped with. Matt, what was the young gentleman's name?
Ethan Jordan.
I think Ethan did a fantastic job with
He had
those.
oversight by our lead graphic designer, but
So what year in school
he's a
is?
junior.
He's a junior?
But he listened to what Mike and I and the rest of the team had to say, made some adjustments to give us another version to look at, and I think it's, what we came up with was really nice.
So for those in the room and listening online, this is not only a logo to be used by the Parks Board, it's a complete brand guidelines, including the text and the font that would be used, all those sorts of things. So as we get closer to getting a trail system in place, all the signage and things will be ready to go. It's one of just, I think it's really helped us to some extent define who we are by what we included and didn't include in the logo. So I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know that if we specifically need a motion in order, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to approve this for our usage.
So do we want to, and just based on previous discussions, do we want to approve this as a board? I think we're aligned there and we can do that, but I think we also took a approach that this is the recommendation of the board as we share our activities and next steps with some of our stakeholders, that we want to make sure that there's an alignment with that group.
That's a great idea, Mike, and I think you're right. That was the discussion. I had forgotten that. I think that goes along with what we also passed out to everybody, and that is Mike's one pager on what we've done, sort of all ties together. That being said, probably want to, is there any discussion about the logos and the brand guidelines today?
No, I would just say that I think they look great too. So it's a good job.
Okay. So in the same vein, we have passed out for our internal usage the activity summary along with the benefits of the greenways and trail systems. The county had asked us to provide something like this. Any discussion on this document? Mike
Yeah, I
has
will
done?
just, I did prep this based on the previous discussions, and I think when I did this, there's a couple intents. One was, we are going to be speaking to stakeholders about what the activities of the board have been. So I want to, create the one pager that represented that, both in terms of how we got to where we were with the steering committee, with this group, vision, mission statements, key activities and key upcoming activities. And then, and for both of these, I think that what keep in mind, these are draft, they're fluid, right? This is going to change. This may change regularly as we have more information. On the second page, it's always confusing to say two one-pagers because they are two separate documents. But we were asked very specifically, what are the benefits of greenways and trails to a community? And so I prepped this with that in mind. There's 20 benefits, if you will, but I think in terms of what I did here was try to keep in mind our specific activities, what came out of the steering team, what came out of the public input. And the way this is built is really to have three main benefits, those being, this has been highly desired by current and potential county residents through not just the public input we had in surveys, but we've continuously seen it through Fort Kosciuszko, the surveys that City of Warsaw, Town of Winona Lake, Syracuse, et cetera, have done. So that's one of the main points, and then there's sub-points that support that. There are tremendous economic benefits to greenways and trails, so tried to capture some of those key points. sub-points with that. And then the last one was environmental and cultural benefits, and I thought that was important because part of our vision and our mission speaks to maintaining the environment and being a good steward of both the environment and cultural aspects of Kosciuszko County. Now, with all that said, again, I had kind of sub-bullets and support references for that. We may, in our speaking to people, have other questions that we want to make sure we include in this. Whether it's support material or how we may modify this as we learn a little bit more. So again, that was the intent of this document, but I want to make sure we have an open mind that this is an absolute, right? As we learn more, as we talk to people, it may continue to modify over time.
Any other discussion about this document?
That's nice work.
Thank you.
It's very nice work. Carrie?
One thing that wasn't on there that we may want to look at, just if you look at census data in our county, this last census that we had, the majority of the growth did happen. Sorry, the majority of the growth in our county did happen in Warsaw and Winona Lake, which if you look at the places where a lot of the quality of life improvements have been in those areas. So maybe even looking at some numbers on, because the census data broke it down, and I don't have the numbers memorized, but when you look at how many residents were added in the county versus in the towns of Winona Lake in the city of Warsaw, there was a pretty significant, a drastic difference in the increase there. And I think that speaks to the quality of life that the community may have, and I want to try to create that, throughout the county, not just in Warsaw and Winona Lake, but in the small communities, but then also even these connector trails along throughout the county. So maybe looking at that as a talking point, if we want our community to grow, which if we want to continue to have low tax rates and all the things that we enjoy, things are increasing, and the only way that that's going to happen is if we have more people to help pay for those amenities. So I think looking at that population and where it's grown historically might be a good measure to, another case point that we could have as we're talking to council or talking to commissioners or other possible people that, if we want to see our community grow, one of the things we need to see is that investment in those quality of life type things, so.
No, that's great feedback. I'll look to add it. I think in a roundabout way, some of that's there because it speaks to the increased
Right.
home values and all that, but
It
I
does.
love
But
adding.
if you look at that,
Yeah.
the census data, don't quote me on this, but I was thinking total number was just a few hundred people that were actually added in Kosciuszko County as far as outside those city limits. And I'm thinking that is like 10% of the growth that happened. Most, like 90% of the growth happened in those communities that have been investing in those parks and rec and quality of life things. So just,
I think having local data.
Right.
That shows that.
if you need help with that, I think Alan Teo at
Yeah,
KEDCO
right.
could help you walk through that, or that census data is public information. You could look at that, and it breaks it down per community and per county, so.
Well, I'm in the middle of helping my son acquire a house.
Okay.
And he's looking in Southtown, which is one of the most desired neighborhoods in Winona Lake now because of its proximity to the greenways.
Yep.
And to the trails.
Yep.
So I'll talk to Alan, and I may also speak to a few realtors in town to see
Right.
if there's some comments about that as well.
Yep. I can tell you that I talked to a local home builder, and he goes, I want to know where you're building trails, because that's where I'm going to build my houses. Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Anything else in relation to the one double pager? Rhonda?
I think I better back you guys up. I think you need to make a motion on your logo. You need to-
So I think, Rhonda, our intent is to table that. One of the things that we had talked about doing was getting together with some of our other stakeholders, specifically with like this one pager we're just talking about. And I think we want to talk to them about the logo as well. Is that fair, everybody?
Perhaps we could set a date or a month by which we come back to approve the logo? Because eventually, we
Yeah.
probably do want to approve
Yeah,
it.
I think we will need to, yeah.
So should we not use it until we?
No, I-
No, we should,
I
I
think
think we
we need to
definitely
use
should
it.
use
Yeah, I
it.
do too, so why don't we just say, we approve it as a board? Right?
Why don't we do this? Why doesn't somebody make a motion that we approve it provisionally subject to further discussion with both council and the commissioners. I mean, that's the groups we're going to talk to
Yeah.
to make sure they were on board.
I'll move what you just said.
Is that good, Rhonda? You got that?
Making the motion,
I made the motion.
I'll second it.
okay, good.
But I think to your point, Matt, let's use it in these documents. We'll use it in, I'll create, PowerPoint presentations as we prep for the RFP and other community presentations we're doing.
Right.
But we just we won't formally print anything with it, like create, sign it, we won't do anything formal with it until we have a final approval from the
Right.
board. That makes
Okay.
sense.
Rhonda, can you show them have you guys all seen maybe not?
I would ask that you don't because it's not fully,
Actually, if we're going to use it in public meetings for PowerPoints and stuff,
yeah.
I think that if it is our tentative proposal,
Yeah,
why not
Okay.
get it out there?
yeah,
All
we
right.
just had it provisionally approved. So,
We can send it, if you give me your email, I can just send it to you.
So like,
Yeah, just that one's fine, so just as a reminder, in our last discussion, we had talked about colors, looking at potentially using blue in further areas, and we wanted to really, Matt and I went deep with the designers on some of these options and made some decisions, some things that sound like a good idea in discussion sometimes in actual practice, don't work, right? So, and they didn't, and, we did a little bit more work because there's also discussions about how this would work with other taglines and other elements. And so also looked at kind of regional county parks, towns, cities, et cetera. And there's no surprise, a lot of commonality there, but I think that also fits within multiple color schemes, having a black and white option, right? We kind of went through those further
You can
iterations the
scroll down a
last,
little bit,
yeah.
Rhonda, If you want to.
She's speaking. So, but anyway, so we went through all that process, which is not always recognized as a process, but it is. And again, we appreciate the work of the graphic designer on this.
Can you scroll down a little bit? We're going to just, while we're doing this, and keep going, just so everybody can see.
And everything you're seeing these are just treatments by, like generic treatments by a graphic designer on how they could be used. There was no discussion in how we plan on using it. Like, make sure we still can see it on a billboard. These are just samples of how it could be used.
Thank you, Rhonda. I think that was the last one. So again, the other thing they supplied us is actually a brand guideline. It says how things are, what font size they are, what fonts to use, all that
So if the
kind of
sign designer's
stuff.
gonna make something, we can just give them the brand guidelines, they don't have to guess what colors they are. They can say it, boom, it's just right there, so it's a nice, complete package.
yeah, that's very good.
Okay,
All right?
it's
So
time
there
to
were-
get down to,
There was a motion. Did we vote on that one?
I don't think so. So I think the motion is to approve this provisionally. Is there any further discussion of that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. So as we do PowerPoints and things in the interim, this will be the brand guidelines we'll follow.
Very good.
So a week from Monday, we have a brief presentation with the Clearwater Partnership,
Okay?
and it would be an opportunity to show a brief PowerPoint. Now, Mike, I heard you offer, but is having something within a week too early for you?
No, because there's two aspects to that. There's one just kind of pulling the logo and such together as a template. I guess the second question is it a presentation essentially representing the front page? Yeah, so I can put something together fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I don't believe I'll be available that day, but I don't know. I'll have to check my detailed
Okay.
calendar.
Well,
I think what we need is vision and mission.
Yeah,
And then, kind of these key
Those points,
actions
yeah.
and the,
yeah, that'll be easy to pull
Yeah.
together.
yeah.
I've got that on my calendar. Is it 10 o'clock?
No, it's earlier. I believe it's believe it's 8:30, and it's at the Chamber.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's on the 10th?
Monday, July the 10th. I'm pretty sure it's 8:30, and it's only like 20 to 30 minutes, including Q&A. So just a brief overview of what we're doing. And then this is the Clearwater Partnership. So some of our high-priority goals would be of interest to them, and we might find some allies to help us move things forward.
Great.
And some questions that would help us determine directions we want to take. So, Rob, it sounds like you plan to be there.
Earlier is a little bit more problematic for me. I'm going to have to go back and look at I've got
I think
a
I can
hearing
be
on my
there if-
calendar
if
at 9,
needed.
but I need to double check it.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm available to go.
Okay.
I think I could probably make it.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't be available, I know for sure.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
Matt. Mike is a.
I'm available, but if it's covered, I probably wouldn't overpower it with the
Okay,
entire
so if
board.
Rob can't make it,
Yeah.
then,
Let-
okay,
let-
Either way.
Get back to my office, I can check for sure what this hearing is.
okay. And I'll be the contact
Yeah,
person.
Carrie?
Okay.
That other date I think we need to have on our calendar too is that August 15th. That's the Community Action Council meeting that Alex, I know Rob, you and I had emailed back and forth. It's been clear back in April, I think. But that August 15th, it'd be at 11:30 meeting at the CAC, so the Community Action Committee, which is at the Community Foundation. They're looking for just like a 10 or 15-minute presentation about the Parks Department. So, I mean,
It'll be the same thing.
yeah,
Now, that is one I no longer can handle. They have moved my state child support conference to that date and covered it up. Can somebody else see if that was,
I'm not available.
What time on August the 15th is that?
that was 11:30?
11:30?
11:30?
That's a Saturday.
No?
August
I'm on the
15th?
wrong month.
No,
August
it's a
15th.
Tuesday.
Should be Tuesday,
Yeah, I can make it work.
Okay.
If I'm needed to be there.
And it's usually about 10 to 15 people, I mean, small group, but, you
Okay.
know, a lot of the different schools and the mayor and a lot of different people, just trying to give them an update on what's going on.
I can possibly as well, so. And then I think we kind of threw it out last time. We have a request from the Warsaw Optimist Breakfast Club, I think in November. I'll come back with a date on that, though,
Okay.
similar.
And
But
obviously, the nice thing is, we get all this type of stuff nailed down. We've got the brand guidelines, we've got a PowerPoint, we've got the talking points. It gets a lot easier for somebody to go fill in because we,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll have a PowerPoint template that works within a week that we can use for the majority of this, and we'll just keep that updated as we progress in our activities.
Now, isn't also August the 15th is another date that's important to us, isn't it, as well? I've got published RFPs contingent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also an important one. Yeah. So for that, the meeting on the 15th at 11:30, if I would be happy to go represent our group there, Aggie.
Okay.
I caught some trepidation. So we can just pencil me in and I'll be the person
Okay.
for that meeting.
Great.
Okay.
we ready to talk about the RFPs?
Sure.
Let's do it.
So, we've got both of them down. Which order do you guys want to talk about?
So can we clarify, though, I think we did get an email saying that these are the only two that will be prepping, right? Or is that what we discussed last time? Because there was talk about the Lake James, but that's,
I think Commissioner Groniger said that we need to move forward on the Lake James because all those proposed items have to be moved forward at some level, even though these are the two primary ones. Is that fair?
That's correct. That was a project listed on the SIP, so we're hoping to have, even if it's not robust and built out, there needs to be something that's, because it's a project that's listed on the SIP,
okay.
it'd be good if we had something.
But we're not going to do a request for proposal on that at this point in time. You just need something from us. Yeah.
But that is one.
That was the August 1st meeting, right? I thought I just saw an email from Amy Rose saying that only the Chinworth and the master plan were being presented, not that.
I don't know that I caught that, but I think
Okay,
we're going, because it's a project that's on
You want
Really
to,
give them some choices.
got it.
Okay.
Yep, understood.
We can put something together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like, pick two, there's two.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can create 8 if you want.
The problem is they're not understood.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Well, let's talk about the master plan first.
Okay.
I see Dustin's here. Dustin, I don't know if you can help us in this discussion. I think we're at the point in time we need to do a couple things. Obviously, we have, at some level, the bidding process is put together by the county. That's in a number of the master plans, but I don't think we need to worry as much about that. We need to worry about what we want the vendor to do, it appears to me. Does everybody sort of agree with that?
Yep.
And I think I sent out all the stuff that Donnie had sent me with the request for proposals and things. Did everybody get those? Okay. Just like that. Yeah, okay. So what is everybody's pleasure for today? Has anybody got a starting point they want to get to? In terms of these?
Well, I think this, should we use this to view reference?
So Matt is referring to, I did just a quick Google map, nobody's gonna be able to see it. I put a layer down of the current biking infrastructure, which Google allows you to do. And then it sort of is an octopus of lines going out to the various communities from that point, with our stated goal of interconnecting. So there's one to the west along Old 30, there's one to the east that really sort of goes, presumably from where the Stonehenge Trail would end when Winona Lake gets done from that out to Pierceton, which we've talked about. A line from Warsaw up to North Webster. If North Webster is going to build up to Syracuse, which we sort of think they are, then that's a good one that we can then make it up to Pumpkin Vine. Directly up either 15, whether that's 15 or Old 15, depending upon the right-of-ways. And then just a real fat line down through Claypool and Syracuse that presumably would end up at,
Claypool and Silver Lake.
what's that?
Claypool and Silver Lake, you said Syracuse. but
Oh,
it would-
yeah, Claypool and
It would
Silver
end
Lake.
up at the Nickel Plate.
Yeah, end up down at the Nickel Plate.
Rochester.
Yeah.
Rochester.
That wouldn't pick up every major community, but it would pick up certainly a lot of them. I think is, you know, what else are we missing when we go to the vendor that we need to?
So I think there's a couple things. One is, well, there's a few things. One, we talked about a linear park along the Tippecanoe River as being one of our major elements, and to me, that's, you know, a portion of a greenway. So I think that would be, you know, where it's located is TBD. And I mean, I think we have some thoughts west of Warsaw, but I think that almost can become the backbone of our system in some ways. So I think that would need to be represented on this. I think again, just kind of getting to where we are, we have to determine if there's potential access to the old interurban going down through Mentone, which might be another route to access the Nickel Plate out of Rochester. And again, I'm cautious on this one just because this is all following a lot of main arteries versus being potentially seeing where we can get green tunnels for greenways. And then I think the other piece to consider are, this is a hub and spoke, what you've drawn versus, well, what about the outer wheel of it, if you will, right? Because we do know that Syracuse is connecting to North Webster. So even though that might not be our activity, should we showcase on that? And do we need to think about, are there ways to connect North Webster to Pierceton? You know, some of those other variants, or even getting up to Napanee as a longer term, well, I won't say longer term, just as part of the master, you know, thoughts on how we would connect these. So, sorry, I added a lot there, but
No, I think those are all good points. I specifically, when I put this together, didn't particularly like the idea that it sort of shows two lines going north out of Warsaw, if you will, up through North Webster and up through Milford, but there's no connection between the two of those.
Right.
So arguably, if you wanted to ride from Milford to Syracuse, you'd have to ride all the way down to Warsaw and back up the other side.
And that's actually, when you see it on a map, it's not as far as you think even, so,
Right.
to do so. But I think that's the way we should be approaching this again is, from a master plan, how would this all work in the end vision? And then obviously it's going to look different as we, build it out over time.
Mike, did I hear you say that you want to have a path along the Tippy River, like a bike path? Is that what you were suggesting?
Well, in our master plan, the county parks master plan, we just approved it, one of the main elements was having a linear park
Yeah.
along the Tippecanoe River.
That's a similar trajectory as what Rob has run in here along Old US 30. too.
It
So
does, but I
you'd
think
like
it
to
stays
go-
further, so I think that's, maybe the bigger map and bigger discussion. Is the linear park a small section and then it branches out to greenways? Or is it potentially a much longer section greenway along the Tippy River,
Yeah.
so.
So from Oswego to Chinworth along the river, it's about 14 river miles. And I think that we're anticipating a water trail that whole way, and from Chinworth out to the county line. And we'll want to put in, this is kind of a different goal, but probably about 4 public launches, because there's no public paddler launches along the Tippy River in that stretch at this point. But I don't think there's any way during all of that area along the river to put in a greenway trail because of current.
Along the
private-
entire length,
Yeah.
Right.
But I think along parts of it we
No.
could. So when you look at this map from the Chinworth area through the, and I'm going to mispronounce it, but the Indian settlement Monoquit, and then to Oswego, that's the route of the river. So I don't know if as you look at that, if you can anticipate how we might be able to connect up with some of the other suggested trails that go
But
through
I
those
think
areas.
I think that falls upon the vendor.
yeah.
I think we're asking the vendor to go verify that they think we can get through all that.
Okay, okay.
One observation that, just I guess while we're kind of tossing around this conceptual drawing here, is that I know that it's really important that we keep in mind the northwest quadrant up towards Napanee. And also, keeping some of the census information in mind for growth and things like that. I wonder if, if we want to maybe further some of these lines to include Sydney. So then you kind of really have, to me, the wheel looks like it's kind of missing 2 spokes, or maybe up toward the top it goes over to Hastings, or from Pearston it goes down to Sydney. I'm not sure, but that gives us, I would think more coverage for our county, with the concept anyway.
Well, Bill had mentioned, you have maps of like old railroad tracks, right, or something? So that seems like,
I think I made that at some point, but I definitely have a copy of it.
Yeah, you made me a copy of that, Bill.
Right.
because
Yep.
that's gonna be so much easier than, making new paths, I think.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It really depends on the, yeah.
Everything mapped as far as, older rail lines that have been abandoned. Left, so it's a layer, so we can put it on, and that's, put on map for Troy, but, we can print that, if needed.
But most of those right-of-ways have been turned back over to the property owner, so it's not like it's.
not
the
yeah,
property
right,
owner
yeah.
that
Right.
owns that. I mean,
Right.
it reverted back to if it split a property in half, it was that property owner, if it was a property line, half lane each way. The other thing, Troy, I like your point on the Napanee area, our community has, or our county has close to about 7,000 Amish residents. So I mean, really looking at, from a, if we're talking about safety and transportation,
Right.
that Amish community that's in that northwest corridor of our northwest quadrant of our county, there's a lot of traffic into Napanee with those people travel, and a lot of them get out on 19.
Right.
It's not a good thing. I know that we're working currently with Elkhart County at the Drainage Board on some drainage improvements that come from Elkhart County down into Kosciuszko, but along with that, I forget what the name of the street is, but on the west side of State Road 19, kind of where that new think it's a building supply store, I forget what the name of it is, but pretty much at the last county road there. I know the city's looking at extending a road down so you can get into town without having to get onto 19, and that might be something we'd want to look at. How could we even possibly extend that further into the Amish community there that could really give them a bicycle artery to get into town without having to get out on State Route 19, because that's not a good situation.
That's a great idea because, just riding up on the Pumpkin Vine, there's a large Amish population up there. And while I'm riding it recreationally, it's obvious that there's a lot of residents that are using it for safe access by bicycle to work or wherever they're going. Yep.
So do you think there's a large,
Dustin?
yeah,
They just had their annual safety, the Amish community had their annual safety awareness meeting, get together. We met, we were there and, taking comments from people on areas of concern, and you nailed it, what Carrie said, that area, particularly west of 19, is where, and there's a couple of roads, but they were very much encouraging us to talk to you guys, or Kosciuszko County, about how we can better coordinate those things. So yeah, that's a great point.
Carrie, do you think there's any right-of-way along the drainage ditches that we might be able to use? Is it a long linear ditch that, I'm just curious.
The struggle is putting on my drainage board hat. I know that we're not super excited about having improved asphalt pathways along the ditch because, we're running a steel track excavator to maintain and dip and all that spoil. We can't dump and spread the spoil there. So, I'm not saying it's not an impossibility. The county does have a 75-foot easement each side of a county drain, but it is specifically for the maintenance of that county drain. It doesn't give us the right to put a bike path or anything like that in there. But historically, if you're doing any sort of improvement inside our drainage easement, that's something that would require the drainage board's approval for a variance for you to do that, just because it impedes our ability to be able to maintain that drain, and possibly even cost us more money of being able to maintain it because we now have to load that spoil and haul it somewhere versus being able to spread it in that 75-foot right-of-way or drainage easement. So, but I know that the city, pretty much that county line is really close right in there on the south side in Napanee, but being able to get them south of town, because on the west side, there's all the it's a big RV, right there by the Amish, or it used to be Amish acres, the barns. Anyhow, I know that
Newmar.
Newmar, there you go. There's a lot of Amish that, and they're going in at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever to go to that job. So being able to get them a safe path into town would be really good.
I imagine that it's a spider web out from Napanee into Elkhart County with the same issues into Marshall County as well. Right, just from I assume the population lives around, sorry. I think this also gets into speaking to Pumpkin Vine and, Marshall County Park and Recreation, like what are their plans so we can manage some of this together too, right? So nothing says, the pathway has to be fully in Kosciuszko County, but if we're working together, if we can create pathways that are safer in general, then all the better, right? As it might come into Kosciuszko County in parts.
It kind of creates some opportunities also, that there's one east-west road, and I apologize, I don't remember the exact number, but it's in Kosciuszko County, but northern part of it, that, it's a very heavily traveled corridor by the Amish, and there's like, no shoulder, it's just your kind of typical county road. They were all, not all, but, a lot of people commented on how that would be a great, to have a wider shoulder at the very least, some sort of improvement, to accommodate cyclists in particular, but even possibly buggies, would be very much appreciated by them. That east-west corridor then
I'm guessing that road is probably 1350.
1350?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does really go all the way from the western edge, all the way over to 15.
Parallel 6, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And some of the people even in Marshall County talk about using that corridor. So, yeah, there's multiple benefits.
Yeah, it could connect Napanee, Milford, Syracuse. I mean, that'd be, to your point, Mike, to make that.
Yeah.
I know at the last two commissioner meetings ago, well, I guess it's ARPA meeting first, we approved $1.8 million, $1.88 million for 1300 North, which is the new overpass that we're sticking over the railroad tracks north of Milford. That's under construction right now, so there'll be a new overpass over the railroad tracks, be a new intersection kind of right there at the Milford Animal Clinic on 15. Go over the railroad tracks and that'll connect up to 1300 North. And the project that we just approved with ARPA funds is redoing or resurfacing and kind of putting a wider shoulder on 1300 all the way from Milford to Syracuse. So now it's not widening enough that you're like going to have a 6-foot paved shoulder you could ride a bike on. It's more, it's just trying to make it more substantial for truck traffic, because we have a lot of opportunity along that corridor for industrial development along there.
Sort of adding these to what I marked out earlier.
Such an exciting discussion to have. So along that way, with the RFP, what we could do is provide to the vendor the conceptual ideas and say, what are the complexities and the probabilities of maybe, going for these? I don't know if it would make sense, or maybe this would be through the process of that would be to set some sort of a prioritization along these, but I think it might be too early to do that right now.
But you know what I like about this, Troy? We've talked about our next step is to take these ideas and go start talking to the stakeholders that are going to have to approve our next
Right.
steps. And this, just like having the master plan, just like having the 2-pager, just like having the logos, gives us an idea of what we're talking about, what we're asking to do, and what we think our vision is. I can print this off as we've updated it. We can all say, here's sort of our pie in the sky.
Right.
Not gonna be built in the next 3 years, but this is what we're thinking.
Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, once we would hire your consultant, I mean, they're gonna take a much deeper dive into what we're doing here today.
Right.
That I don't think we have to have it fully built out, because there's gonna be a fair amount of public engagement through that process that'll really get all the kind of gory details on this. But I think really having at least a target of what you're really seeing needs to be encompassed, I
Yeah.
think will really help you get a good RFP that includes what all you're looking for. So
Right.
I think the discussion is great, so I'm not saying that, but we don't have to solve every problem today, is what I'm saying is there'll be a lot of
Plenty of
input
time.
happening through that process.
I'm just where,
I would second the idea of prioritizing at least some, kind of what I talked about a couple months ago. That sets the groundwork for what projects that you can go after funding for, rather than wait till the funding comes out and then, which one should we do? It's much better for you guys and gives you time ahead of time to talk about what's coming up 2 years from now that we need to start looking at planning for.
So you've done this before. What is the best order in which to do this? Have something like a professional map this out, or look at the feasibility? They may look at this and say, oh, you can't run along the state of 15. Or should they map something up for us, or have something drawn up, and then we can come back and prioritize it?
I think, anytime you put a line on a map, everybody's gonna stick to that. And so depending on, having a corridor along the Tippy River, you guys, everybody agrees that should be looked at. I think that's okay. But then describing, that as the spine, and then other things coming off and trying to connect the majority or all the communities within Kosciuszko County, start drawing lines to that spine, and they should end up at the same thing that you guys are wanting, without you drawing the lines, and then they start saying, well, they went on this county road. You know, personally, I prefer to be less specific and let them figure out the best route. If you, and with the public input, and you guys would have to be part of that public input as well. But don't give them all the preconceived solutions at the beginning. Otherwise, they're just kind of pretty enough, you guys know.
Okay. So what do we need to do sort of today? What are we not doing today that we need to be doing to get ready to maybe approve to the powers that be that we wanted to go forward with the RFP the next meeting?
I would say, you know, a description of what you're looking for, a text, a written description.
Okay?
What you're looking for from a qualifications standpoint.
What do you mean by that?
I'm sorry?
The qualifications, what do you mean by?
Some of that will be in what we've already got,
Yeah.
there's some version documents and stuff.
You know, years of experience, whether they're local or, you know, whether you want them to be local or not. You know, whatever kind of qualifiers you can think of for that organization.
Well, and that's one where you guys, Donnie had supplied, like, the one you guys had done before. I don't know why we'd recreate the wheels if
Right.
you guys have done it before and it turned out successful. I don't have any desire to wordsmith you. I think that the description of it, I could see varying a little bit, because we definitely have some ideas that are different than Elkhart or Goshen or whoever would have. So if I were to say, let's work on that and plug it in, and then as I said earlier, Marcia's gonna have to plug in all the bidding rules that are by her standards. That's not really something our board can address specifically. We do want to do a pre-RFP meeting. I don't know that we've got something in regard to a pre-RFP call to vendors. Do you guys have anything like that?
We've done that before, but yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Rob. It seems like we should be able to take a conceptual drawing and with some of the ideas that we've floated here, and then use those to fuel a master RFP, and then take it down one level for the Chinworth Bridge RFP that's specific on that trail, where we're asking, you know, if we were to do these things, how would we go about them? What would they cost? And another thing, not to put us in reverse, but I know that on our talking points, as we were meeting today, one of the things that we might want to consider is the maintenance costs or some of those aspects, because I know that when we do talk with people on that, that's going to be maybe one of the first things that comes to their mind is about, okay, we're building something, how do we envision maintaining it? So, but yeah, I guess if we couldn't do those things as far as with the master RFP and the more specific Chinworth Bridge RFP, I would need to kind of have a little bit more direction on where to start, because to me, that seems like that's how I would do it. So can we just do that?
Yeah.
For our internal use, it would be helpful to use the map that Rob has made, and
Yeah.
not necessarily give it to the vendors or the people who are doing the design.
Yeah, I like what Dustin said. I think this is fine to go to council commissioners and say, these are some of the ideas we have, and it's gonna be fleshed out by, this is why we need the RFP. But you're right, once we draw those lines, everybody thinks that's where it's gonna go.
And right now, wherever we put a line, it's just totally arbitrary.
Yeah,
Unless, you know,
with except for the fact that we know there's extended pathways, right-of-ways along some of them, which makes it extremely likely that's where we're gonna go.
The other thing that this is not showing that we still have to incorporate into our thinking, and maybe into this RFP, is how we're gonna cross 30. With the
Yeah.
Health 30, the NDOT work, that this all needs to somewhat work together.
30 obviously is a huge problem, especially if they were to move 30 and they keep the old 30, now we've got to cross potentially 2 routes.
The one thing I would add along the lines of the prioritization, what you're doing with the Chenoweth project, I would love to see the master plan come out with at least one, maybe 2, ideally 3 projects at that level of detail that you're at now. So
You've already shared that with us before.
Yeah.
You're right, it's a mix between the vision plus some very actionable priorities, right, at this point.
And like I said, you know, it's more cost each time you add one on, so, you know, like I said, at least one. But then you've got something that we can just plug into a grant, the proper grant application, rather than another step and potentially another year.
Right.
No, I hear you, Dustin. I think that's good. I agree.
One thing that I'd have to talk to ARPA committee about how that might work. I know in the SIP on health, it was pretty specific on a Blueway and master trail plan, but it didn't really specify whether or not, kind of what Dustin is saying, could you incorporate into that some of these more detailed plans that, even though it's really 2 different contracts, because you know, there's going to be more of a landscape architect or designer doing the master, but when it comes to the design of the trail, that's more civil engineering. But could that be rolled into this RFP? Because I do think, depending upon the dollars, you know, that is a bucket that there is some money available, because I do think having a set of drawings ready to go, and then you're just looking for a funding source, is gonna give us a lot higher probability of getting those projects done in a timely manner, because versus, well, as soon as we have the money, we'll draw plans and decide whether or not it's good. Well, if you've already got the plans,
Right.
it just, you know, it's kinda like if you aim small, miss small from a perspective, if you have all the details worked out and you're dialed in on what you want, it's gonna be a lot higher probability you're gonna get what you want versus waiting for the right moment, so.
And we have to stay ahead of the game, right?
Right, exactly.
Projects lined up.
You've already got some projects in the queue, ready to go. You know, and I'm not saying it's gotta be full built-out drawings like NDOT would need for a trail project, but at least enough you know that it's buildable and some sort of a good engineered cost estimate that would take to try to build that trail.
And I even, to kind of build on that, to identify, you know, if you're gonna follow an existing road corridor, which side of the road you're gonna be on, so you can identify the landowners, and then pre-submitting for a grant application, you've talked with all the landowners along there. What a lot of the agencies and grant entities right now are hating is, people that haven't been contacted.
Right.
And you get one landowner that's like, you're not going through my property, so now you gotta talk eminent domain, and they don't want that.
Right.
They're wanting to fund projects that everybody's happy about,
Right.
So,
Bill and I had sort of tried to look at where the right-of-way was along Old 30 after the last meeting, and it was just really hard to see how much land there was on which side and what was there. And this is where the RFP comes. You're paying somebody to go out there largely and drive that and determine what's there and what's not there and the problems you have. So the one thing that's interesting is, as I've looked at this, there's no real definition of a master plan. The master plan is whatever we define it as. So if we define it as, this is the level you're gonna go to, then that's what they're gonna bill us for, and that's what they're gonna do.
Because I think it's important that you know what your deliverables are, what you want for deliverables at the end of this. Because we do already have $30,000 from Winona Lake towards this plan as well. So I'm just telling you, we don't want to shoot too low or we don't want to think too small. This is kind of our opportunity to really try to build a little bit of a backlog of projects out ahead of us with this master trail and these other more specific top 3 projects we might, or 4, whatever we might want to do, that we've even went a little deeper on, that we really know what that's going to take.
So Dustin, I guess one of my uncomfortable responsibilities, if that's a word. This isn't what I do in terms of writing this stuff. And I'm sort of getting, we all know what we want, but none of us know how to put this together into, is that where you come into helping us get that done?
We can, yeah.
So what's our next step then?
So formatting it and, just kind of the basic, that, you guys have it.
Right,
We've done it.
Right.
We'll
We've done it.
start
Yep.
with.
yep,
I think that description of what you guys are looking for in a pretty broad sense
Mhm.
is the key.
okay,
That, I can even, from our discussion here, I can write something up, but you guys are gonna have to wordsmith the heck out of it, so that,
If we had, could you give us a fill in the blanks kind of thing, we can be. Give us a basic template,
Adverbs,
we'll fill in the
nouns.
blanks. Yes,
I think to a large extent you've got it, with the other examples.
yeah.
okay,
But that, I think is the key piece of, what you guys can do more efficiently than I can.
okay.
And then should we decide what the top 3 projects are also? I mean, we have the broad.
I would say-
include the top 3.
Connections, yeah, if you know them, maybe with like particular emphasis on connections between blah, blah, blah. Part of what is gonna happen, you can go back and forth with us or amongst each other or whatever and never come up with the perfect thing. And the consultants are gonna come up with something that you're like, oh, didn't think about that. So it's my personal preference is do the best we can, and then we'll deal with the questions and answer those when that comes around. The first thing, you guys probably know this, the consultants are gonna ask is how much is the budget? So I apologize if you guys have already figured that out, but that's a big question that you need to answer.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I'd like us to see us do a pre-RFP meeting to start getting some ideas from people on what they think all this is going to cost. Because I'm not sure that at least I haven't put down any sort of number I thought was going to be the number we're going to need to. Gary, I don't know if you've come up with any number that you want to publicly announce.
NACOG can even help us a little bit with that on what they've seen with some other projects. I think, I had in mind it's about $100,000.
That's what I would have said.
Okay.
Sorry, was that?
How much?
100.
Well, I think in terms of this, then Dustin, if you can send us, I don't think this came to me in Word format. Could you send it to me in Word format?
Yes.
And then Marcia, I'll get together with you. Let's make sure we got the bidding stuff structured that satisfies what you need. And I know we need Ed to review it once we get to that point. But then we can wordsmith all the words that we need, which quite honestly is like 3 paragraphs out of this whole thing when you look at it and get on board. Now, we were talking about 2 of these, one for Chinworth and one just for the master plan. Are you saying just incorporate Chinworth into this? I think we wanted to move faster on Chinworth. That was one of the reasons.
I guess that, at the beginning of the discussion, I was understanding that we were doing that for, I say we, this group in the room here, are doing that separately.
Right.
And I think that's appropriate because it is kind of a different scope.
Right.
With a level of detail. So yeah, if you're
Okay.
asking me what I would do it separately.
Okay. So that won't be one of our priorities then in the trail master plan because we're dealing with that outside of the trail master plan at some level. Right.
So then the priorities that we had mentioned could exclude the Chinworth.
Yeah.
Right,
I think it mentions that Chinworth is a priority, but it's being handled
right.
potentially through another,
Yeah, but Chinworth only so far.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And the
Yeah.
rest of it out to Etna Green potentially
Well, that's
could
true.
still be part of the master
yeah,
plan.
that's a good way to put it, yeah. good
Yeah, I
point.
think actually we need to share that bigger vision. Because if someone just looks at Chinworth right now, there's a little bit of why if you don't understand, no, this is actually one piece of delivering on the bigger vision of connecting the communities. And eventually we need to get to Atwood and Etna Green.
Thank you, sir.
One other source on this that I think we need to look at or revisit, I'm not sure if it came out of Ride Walk or it was the 50-year plan. It might have been out of even the city of Warsaw, but I know part of that was looking at ways of connecting some of the schools so that there are safe routes to schools. And I think some of that is actually in county land. So I just bring that up, that some of these other projects, we need to think about how it fits into this master plan, and these might also be smaller priority projects, right, that are pieces of the bigger plan that we can might be able to drive forward sooner. I just can't remember the name of that. It's the 50-year plan for something.
Is that the one we just had the visioning meeting on? We were talking about updating?
Well, that might be part of it, yeah, maybe. But there's like a master streets plan or, because, maybe, but I think it was, yeah, maybe, but I think it was done at the city of Warsaw and Winona Lake level. Because for what we're picturing here, it was almost a smaller hub and spoke system with a wheel around it, more for, and again, I know we don't want to focus on Warsaw and Winona Lake, other than if there are opportunities that are on county property that do help, deliver that, and it works into our bigger plan, then I think we need to make sure we're aware of those and potentially prioritizing them. Because for example, I just know safe access to schools for both pedestrian, for kids walking and riding to school is a big problem. And we don't have enough of it. Some schools don't allow any walking or biking to school because of the only access are county roads. So again, there might be an opportunity for us in our, working that into our overall plan.
Any more discussion today on the request for proposal? I think we sort of have a game plan.
I will, yeah, just a little bit more going back to Aggie's comment about, we've been talking about the Greenway aspect, but not the Blueway aspect. And you had mentioned potentially a number of launches, and maybe the RFP comes back with a recommendation on that, but I think just let's not lose sight of the Blueway aspect of this.
Good point.
And I think the other piece, I like the idea of, I don't know how perfect it's gonna be, we've talked about before, is thinking about nodes, like Chinworth is potentially a node. It's a node because it could be a launch for the Blueway and also a meeting point for Greenways, right? So if there's an opportunity to have different nodes that serve both the launch point and or a redirection on the Greenway or that's where it divides, it's just something to think about.
One of the things that's gonna happen naturally is that if we're making a path that goes along the Tippy River, it's gonna be easier to
Right.
have these launch points. I mean, you just could, by very nature,
Yep.
have the launch points incorporated in that.
I agree with that, and I'm just thinking though, as if there's other areas that it is access to the Blueway, it might be, that launch point might be the perfect place to make sure that we're making sure the Greenway goes through as well. Again, it might not make sense, but it's just kind of a thought.
So the one email I sent out today that had the National Park Service stuff in it, I sent that out fairly late, so I'm imagining some of you haven't even seen that yet. That was really interesting because it had stuff on Blueways, but it also had like 4 different definitions of, well, it had a section on trailheads and what was going to be at every trailhead, and you could sort of check what you wanted at every trailhead. I think it goes along to what you're talking about nodes. So I think that's a great thing to look at that we can also discuss and want that as part of our master plan parking and where are you going to park? And the vendor ought to be looking at those options. Having a 50-mile trail that is only a 50-mile trail with no place to park on it is probably not exactly
Right.
what we want.
And we've talked about even potentially dispersed camping and some other options along the way too, so.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, I had a chance to ride my bike on the new section of the Next Level Trail along the Elkhart River, close to in the city of Elkhart. And they have a beautiful parking lot, which is clearly handicapped accessible. But what they don't have is any restrooms. So it was just interesting riding that section. And then I rode from Goshen all the way into Elkhart to kind of get the bigger than just the new part of it. But it was interesting to just look at how much money had to go into that parking area to make sure it had the accessibility requirements met.
Okay, last call for stuff on the RFP for today. So Dustin will send that to us in Word, we'll wordsmith the heck out of it, hopefully get it tuned up for the meeting in July. I think that's the plan. Looks
We'll
like-
need to.
What's that?
Yeah, we need to
We
have
need to.
that because if we're presenting on August 1st, we need to,
Right.
you know, then we only have
So that's the
10
plan.
days to bring that together.
Okay. Do we need a work meeting in between here and there then?
I wouldn't mind one.
Yeah, I think so
I
too.
would like one.
Okay, well, let's look at our calendar.
It's gonna be tough.
I'll be tentative to Rhonda being able to get us a room, but
Yeah.
So your next regular meeting is July 20th.
About the 18th? July 18th? Is that, well,
Is there
that's
a date
kind
that
of,
works
that's
best for you
way
guys?
out there though, that's too far.
well, the problem is, there isn't a lot of time, because we have the 4th of July week, and then we've got a full week, and then the next week's our meeting.
Yeah, I could do
There's
the
not a lot of
11th.
space.
I could do the 11th or the 13th.
The
That's-
13th is wide open for me.
Works for me.
13th.
I'm not available the 12th or 13th, but you can meet without me.
How about the 11th?
I can potentially, I think the 11th will work for me.
11th?
11th is fine for
Okay.
me.
The 11th works for me, but it needs to be in the morning rather than at 1.
I don't have a problem with
Okay.
it.
That's, works for me.
Morning is in what time?
I just need to be back home by noon.
Okay.
What day did you guys?
11th, and could you actually just find out what time this room is available, and we'll take it, I think, as long as we finish by noon, or even finish by 11:30.
I think that's fair.
Okay,
Does it need to be public meeting?
yes.
Yeah, so the purpose of that meeting then will be to simply work on the RFPs.
It'd be great if we're trying to wordsmith, if we can.
Yeah, I'll work with Rhonda, let's work together on, I don't remember how to get my laptop on the system. And then I can type stuff as we go.
And then we should be thinking about the top 3 priorities.
And Dustin, if you could zoom in, we could set that up too. You don't have to drive down.
So I was thinking, or at least, you know, whether it's me or Donnie or Zach.
Yeah, that'd be great. If somebody could be available, that'd be awesome.
Is there a volunteer, and it's not going to be me, to actually start wordsmithing it before that meeting, to really understand what the document says and where we might need to input stuff and where,
Yeah,
I think it might
I'll start doing
okay.
that. I've looked at some other plans and I know I had one that was potentially a blue way that we need to incorporate. So maybe we can get just a rough outline of it.
yeah, if you can get us a rough
There you go,
outline
Ron.
structure, I think
That's
that'll help the discussion.
Okay. Anything else on that issue then?
What is our time for the 11th? What time?
Rhonda,
Rhonda's gonna let us know when the room's available.
Okay, you'll just email us then.
Yeah.
right,
Well, then, let's move on to good of the order. And we do have somebody who wanted to talk. Jean, is it Sosnan? Is that how it was pronounced? Come on up. So Jean had contacted me. She's got a piece of property she thinks the Parks Board ought to look at potentially taking, and she had some ideas for fundraising, so.
great.
Is the microphone turned green?
Yes, it is. I think Rhonda took care of that for me. Thank you for letting me bring this to you because it's what I see is a really good opportunity, but it's there's a short window here, so I don't know, but my family has had a property on East Forest Glen Road on Tippy. In March, it was 100 years. And so along that line and between East Forest Glen and Stanton Road and that subdivision, which sadly is a subdivision rather than the Teeple Farm. I go way back. There's an opportunity possibly for a 22-acre stretch that covers all the way to T25, which is where the Tippy Dance Hall and the public access is, and over to East Stanton Road as it curves around. And that's the last open space there. And it was just sold, I believe, at auction. I don't live up here. I live in Louisville, so my time is limited. But it was sold to, it was bought by one of the Ransbottom's LLCs. So they own that now. But interestingly, it's always been agricultural, so it's mostly open. But at the one end, the previous owner put in a pond, and then and he put in a building there. It's a metal type, good-sized building, which I think lends itself to, if it were part of the parks thing, it would already be there for equipment. I think that's what they use it for. And actually, David Ransbottom, who is, because we own a cottage on the lake and then a lot across the street, so this backs up to our property over there. And right now, they had given a plan to the zoning board, which we objected to, and that was taken off the table, but now they've been approved for more residential, and they want to divide it into 41 lots and fill it up with houses, and then you've got no access across there. So right now, there's 22 acres with possibly a pond and a building, and it would run, so it's like, there's a little road called Teeple Road, so I don't know who's familiar with what, but there's a property that goes on over, so you've got like half a mile on Stanton Road to turn and go down to the dance hall where the public access is, and all that. So I don't know who owns the property beyond that would connect with Oswego, but I do know that on the south side of Tippecanoe, there are areas that would be very limited to try to do a park. And this would give you a whole strip of 22 acres, plus the fact it's about the end of the open space, and I have a real concern for the wildlife. I mean, where are they going to go? We have wild turkeys and foxes and deer and all of it. This is about the end of it. Where are they going? We're just not protecting it. And also, if you go on around East Forest Glen and go down toward Armstrong Road, there was a golf course there, which I don't know who owns that, and I don't know what plans they have. I suspect it's more housing. But that would be, and there were tennis courts there that I think are still there. So that's a possibility, because you could go, it's just around the corner there, and you have access to that maybe, and I don't have no idea about that. But the thing with this property is that they are geared up to start moving dirt like by August. So it's really limited, and it's not a cheap price tag. So part of the reason I'm here is not only to present that, but to let you know it is kind of a short window. And I had no idea what you all do, if you had a budget or anything at all. But I would think there aren't any really parks there's Crosley across on the north side, but the south side, there really isn't anything. So our mailing is Leesburg, so I would think Leesburg would be interested in possibly promoting that. I have no idea. I haven't talked to anybody.
Now, you're not in Leesburg itself, though, right? You're not in the corporate limits?
Well, I don't really know. Our mailing address is Leesburg, so
Okay.
that's as much as I know.
Do you
But
have any indication that they want to sell?
David Ransbottom is the one that told me about you. I did not know that you existed.
So he must,
So I said, okay, so what are we talking? And so he was kind of, giving in a ballpark, and he came up with $1 million. So it's not $1 million. But I know they do excavating and stuff, so I don't know if there's a way to incorporate that into what your needs are for any of this, working with them. That was David's opinion. He had talked to his brother and his father at that point, so, but he seemed to think that everything was negotiable. And so I was thinking, I don't know how you all operate, but I would be willing to talk to, you have better contacts than I do, but I don't mind cold calls at all. And I would be willing to talk to like the Leesburg mayor or whoever. And possibly, I would think that other entities in the area might be willing to do some fundraising, like the winery possibly, and the churches, other businesses, and you would probably have better ideas than I am. I'm willing to help with it, but it is a short window, but it's an opportunity that I think you might not want to miss on that side. And there just isn't any park between Leesburg and North Webster. I mean, Warsaw has parks and North Webster does, but we have the lake, and my position is that it's a recreational area, and that needs to be protected because it just shrinks and shrinks, and so does the wildlife and the recreational aspect of it. So, any other questions about that, or?
There's a Lake Tippy Property Owners Association,
Yes, there is.
and I don't know if they would have any interest in trying to acquire this for a public use. Have you had conversations with them?
I do not, and I didn't pursue that because until I talked to you, I didn't know. I do know that the neighbors around where we are, with the border up to this, are absolutely, I mean, we must have had 300 people show up to the original zoning meeting. So I do know that the ones that I've been able to talk to, I've not been up here, but about a couple of weeks, they, they were saying, oh, a park, that's a great idea. As a matter of fact, a young couple was walking along. We have a lot of walkers and bikers and that sort of thing, which is another reason to not add more light and traffic and stuff. But this was a young couple with a baby, and they were walking along Forest Glen. So I was talking to them. Well, they're renting a place down by, in Cripplegate, down by the dance hall. And so I was kind of just telling them about that because they're sort of looking for a place. And so I was telling them about it, and they said, oh, if they could get a park, that would just be awesome. So that's just kind of a public, because they're not part of the community. But I do know that all of us that back up to that are really interested in trying to come up with an alternate plan, and listening to, which I was not aware of, listening to your trails and connections and that sort of thing. Beyond this, you've got Stanton Lake, so then you're down to Armstrong Road, and this is so much closer to the lake. It just seems even more interesting to your purposes as well.
And you said you didn't know about us, so just a few things. We only started in August. We are a really new entity.
David
We
said
don't-
that,
We
yeah.
don't owe as much as a single lawnmower at this point in time. So to say we need to come up with $1 million is just like huge.
A couple of months. Well, I would hope that if they were showing enough interest, they would be willing to delay their,
Right.
and give us some time.
I'm sorry, but I missed your name.
Jean Sosnin, Jean and Sosnin.
Okay. I was looking
And
on,
I'm at 4082 East Forest Glen. And the lot that backs up to the property I'm talking about is 4091.
yeah, I'm looking right now on the GIS to try to see if I could locate it.
I found it, Troy.
Okay,
Yeah, sort of a triangle.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And it sounds like in the attempt for the new owner developer to move forward, that things are at the zoning approval level at this point?
They do have approval for the residential.
They do have approval.
That was like last month,
Okay.
very recently.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that had been approved or if it had been,
It was.
if it was still in
That's-
process.
Yeah, no, I think that's been approved. That's what I've been told.
I think one of the things I'll do is I'll give Matt Sandy a call, see if he can tell me what the status of this is. Usually, once they get to that point in time, it's my understanding, they're pretty much ready to go. So we may already be too late.
Well, this conversation with David was like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I mean, you know, he talked about the urgency and so I'm one not to give up until it's, it's not over till it's over. I just think there's so many critical aspects of this that I think at this point, after having fought the original zoning for commercial, and that was for storage units with apartments on top, and they were really like 35 feet high, and they were, anyway. I just think this is, I don't know, an opportunity that can get by and then make things more complicated, so. And then, of course, the wildlife is just, there's not much left.
Well, I don't want you to think that we're not hearing what you have to say. I just don't have any idea where, let me do this. I will call Matt Sandy. Do you have Mr. Ransbottom's phone number?
I do not. David didn't have a card on
I
him.
bet Matt Sandy's got it in the application, if I can get it from him. You got his number? We'll give him a call and we'll see. I wish this was a year out and not,
Oh,
out.
believe me, I do too. We were hoping it wouldn't move forward that quickly, but that was the first thing I heard when I got up here. But that was just in June that it was approved, so,
okay. So we'll make some calls and we'll see what we can do.
okay, I'm willing to jump in wherever I can.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you still want me to?
You know, I've got your email address. If you have something else, shoot me an email. Other than that, I think if I call Matt and we call Mr. Ransbottom, that's probably the starting point. I don't know where we can go other than that initially, anyway.
Well, David's the one I talked to.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
listening.
Thank you.
Anybody else for good of the order today?
Under old business?
Yep.
We had decided a few meetings ago to have a series of meetings with leaders, and then we have a spreadsheet going
Right.
with assignments. And when we first talked about that, it wasn't just about these RFPs, it was broader than that.
Right.
Can we proceed with those meetings?
Oh, I think we're in really good shape to proceed with those meetings. I think the one-pager Mike put together was really a precursor to all that. Again, as we said earlier, I think our little mapping exercise that we sort of did today is useful. I think go for it.
Okay.
That's my impression. Yeah, well, I think I shared with everybody the spreadsheet. I think you can just add on who you're gonna go to.
Yeah, and the thought was to likely have 2 people from our board at most of the meetings.
I think that's a great idea.
And there's, I think in each case, in the number 1 column, there's someone whose name is listed. So maybe that person does the scheduling.
Okay?
And then if somebody else wants to go along, they can put their name in the number 2 position. Or if we have a meeting scheduled and we don't know who the number 2 is, we can email and see who else may be free. Does
Okay.
that sound like an
Yeah, I think
approach?
that makes sense. I don't know if I put a date column in there. Why don't I make sure there's a date and time column? Because that way if somebody else is looking at going, they'll know when it is.
But can we go independently? I mean, I
Sure.
like one-on-one too. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of value there too, so.
I don't have any preference. I
Okay.
just,
Okay,
I like having 2
Okay.
people go to stuff, but if you know somebody, that's gonna be the most advantageous thing to do.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, great idea to have 2, but if someone knows someone already, yeah, go
it's
ahead.
fine. Okay, great.
Anything else? Then we'll stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Way to go.
Oh, is she in now? Awesome.
Yeah, so we're trying to, yeah. I am gonna have to. Yes. Well, 11th, I think.
Okay. You know, Mike, you do what you need to do.
That's the only thing. Absolutely.
But for good means you're out for a lap.
I want to get the exercise. I'll let you know. Another thing is she just, she looks just, hanging out. I don't know how much.
Go
We might be getting into deep